this is Steve Rosenberg with Mind Property Management, and today I'm joined with Scott Mazuka, who is the Portland Mind Property Management Property Manager. Scott, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So there's been some new laws that have been enacted regarding tenant requirements for tenant screening. Can you elaborate on this? And this is something that just happened, correct?
Yes, it's called the new F.A.I.R Act, and the city of Portland just implemented this ordinance effective March 1st. It was put into law February 1st, so it's only given us landlords 20 business working days to actually master and implement. And you'll see by the complexity of this, that was a real burden that they've placed on property owners. A few examples when we're talking about tenant screenings is there's actually two options. There's a low barrier option, and then there's, if you choose not to use that, then you can set up your own screening criteria. However, even if you use your own screening criteria, they have put in some regulations and imposed a few barriers. So a few examples, in some cases, there's a 72-hour notice waiting period. You must identify the unit as accessible for mobility or disability. Must allow prospects to disclose if in fact they have some type of disability. Some circumstances, the disabled applicants will actually be moved to the front of the stack and have an opportunity for a unit. And probably the next biggest thing next to the 72-hour notice, which is a real delay for us property owners, is that they're putting a restriction on the rent-to-income ratio. For the low barrier, it's actually as low as 2 times the rent. And if you come up with your own criteria, they've still limited it to 2.5 times the rent ratio.
Wow, it sounds like the regulations are really putting a heavy burden on the landlords, and it sounds like they're potentially going to be slowing down the process as a whole.
Steve, it really is. In addition to this potentially upfront 72-hour holding period, there's also an appeal process that they've put into place. So if you have an applicant who applies but they don't meet their criteria, then you can deny their application, but you have to notify them that they have an appeal process. And this can last up to 30 days, which means they have a chance to appeal the reason why you denied them, submit some documentation. And if they can overcome that, then you have to approve them and actually use them for another available unit. But in some case, this whole appeal process, you can see it's extra work, it's extra time, and it actually could slow down the approval process for other applicants.
So what happens if I'm a landlord? What happens if I make a mistake? What happens there?
Excuse me. Well, that's a good question. And again, these rules are new, so I want to make sure that we disclose that this should not be substituted for legal advice. But the criteria, one example would be 2 times the security deposit and $250 for every error along the way. And then, of course, potentially legal costs. So depending on how many errors you make and where the error is in the process, it could be thousands of dollars.
Man, well, that's good to know. And again, this is a law that was just enacted, so obviously it's going to be ever changing. I'm sure there'll be revisions to it as far as any appeals that are going to happen through the legislative process. So again, it just goes to show that this is why you want to make sure that you either are hiring experts like Mind Property Management, or you are treating your property, if you're self-managing, as you being the expert. But just make sure that you know the laws, because they are changing. We do have more content and videos regarding this subject we're going to be talking on. Scott, if somebody wants to actually talk more to you in depth, how would they get a hold of you?
The best way would be go to our website, mind.co, www.mynd.co. look for the Portland, Oregon tab or just the Oregon tab, and my contact information will be available.
Great. And for those of you who'd like to know more, you can go to our Facebook group, the Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club, or you can join our podcast group. It's on iTunes, Spotify, and that is called The Mindful Investor. It comes out every week. We have very, very successful investors all the way down to brand new novice investors, all trying to learn how to be experienced, how to learn from the wins and the challenges that happen to all of us as investors in this real estate industry. So on behalf of Scott and myself, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going, join our Facebook group.